If you feel like life is getting more expensive every time you look at the news, you are right. Gas prices have already jumped to a national average of $4.48 per gallon. But the real question is why we are in this situation at all. Before the president announced major combat operations on February 28, 2026, the Strait of Hormuz was open. Now, after months of war and a massive military buildup, the waterway is a graveyard of stranded ships. Should the world actually believe Donald Trump when he says peace is around the corner? On Tuesday, May 5, 2026, the White House announced a temporary pause to Project Freedom. This was the high-stakes mission designed to guide 23,000 stranded sailors through the world's most dangerous waterway. President Trump posted on social media that the mission would be paused for a short period of time to see if an agreement can be signed. He claimed that great progress has been made toward a final deal. But while the warships are standing down, the financial pressure is only ramping up. There is a massive gap between what the president says and what his own team is telling the public. Only hours before the president announced this pause, Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters that Project Freedom was the next phase of the war. Rubio described the operation as a way to rescue civilians from 87 different countries who have been left for dead by the Iranian regime. Then, the president suddenly changed the narrative by claiming negotiations were going well. Rubio later admitted that he does not even know if the United States needs to secure Iran's nuclear material for the war to end. He also hinted that talks might not be as active as the president suggests. This leads to a dangerous level of uncertainty for the world economy. Shipping companies do not know if they can trust the route, and insurance costs are skyrocketing. When the leader of the most powerful military on Earth says one thing and his top diplomat says another, the markets panic. This uncertainty is why your grocery bill is not coming down. 1/5 of the world's oil normally flows through that narrow gap. If the world does not know who is in charge of the mission, they cannot plan for the future. The mystery deepens when you look at why the president is asking for help from NATO and other allies. In a recent post, Trump suggested that it is time for South Korea to come and join the mission. He has also pointed to the United Arab Emirates as a champion ally that is doing everything asked of them. But many NATO countries are refusing to jump into this fight. French President Emmanuel Macron has called for a complete cessation of all hostilities and a return to diplomatic negotiations. Macron is pushing for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz without any tolls or coercive measures. Why are these allies saying no to the United States? It is because they see this as a crisis that was avoidable. They believe that unilateral escalation against tankers and container ships is a mistake that only fuels more war. While the United States is enforcing an ironclad blockade of Iranian ports, countries like France and China are warning that a political crisis cannot be resolved through military means. They see Project Freedom as a project deadlock. They are worried that being dragged into this quagmire will lead to a global economic collapse that no peace treaty can fix. The world is also watching the situation inside the Iranian government with intense suspicion. There are rising fears of an Iranian deep state because the status of the supreme leader is unclear. Rumors that he has been dead since February are multiplying. If there is no clear leader in Tehran, then who exactly is President Trump negotiating with? This adds another layer of risk to any announcement coming out of the White House. If the peace deal is based on a memo that the other side might not even be able to sign, then the ceasefire is built on sand. In the middle of all this confusion, the American people are the ones paying the price. Senator Lindsey Graham recently told the public that they have to pay now or pay later against thugs like Iran. He argued that high gas prices are a necessary cost to stop a rogue regime from getting a nuclear weapon. He even suggested a Second Amendment solution where the United States and Israel should arm Iranian civilians so they can rise up and destroy the regime themselves. He believes we do not need American boots on the ground if we empower the millions of people already in Iran. But this talk of regime change only makes the shipping lanes more unstable. While the United States says it is not looking for a fight, it has established a powerful red, white, and blue dome over the water. This defensive umbrella includes guided missile destroyers and over 100 aircraft. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth warned that while the operation is peaceful, the military is locked and loaded to respond with lethal efficiency. He revealed that 6 ships tried to run the American blockade recently and were all turned around. What changes next is anyone's guess. The next 2 weeks will be dominated by a high-stakes trip to Beijing. President Trump is set to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping to discuss the war and trade. China is already playing a greater role by meeting with the Iranian foreign minister to push for a complete end to the fighting. They believe that restarting the conflict is even more undesirable than the current stalemate. But the United States is still pressuring the United Nations Security Council to pass a resolution that would require Iran to stop mining the water and disclose where they have hidden their sea mines. You should also watch what is happening in the United States Congress. A 60-day deadline under the War Powers Act has already passed without any official authorization for the war. Some Republicans are now working on a new law that would act as a restraint on the president's powers. They are worried about the lack of a credible plan and information from the administration. If the lawmakers in Washington do not even know what the final objective is, how can the rest of the world be expected to follow? The reality is that the Strait of Hormuz was a functioning waterway before this campaign began. Now, it is a tool for international extortion. Iran is trying to formalize a system called the Persian Gulf Strait Authority to collect tolls from every ship that passes. The United States says this is illegal piracy, but the blockade remains in full force. This means that even during a ceasefire, the flow of goods is restricted. The uncertainty of when or if the ships will move again is what keeps oil prices high. Should you believe the announcements about a peace deal? The history of this conflict suggests that you should be cautious. Previous talks in Pakistan already failed to reach a lasting agreement. The president has been quick to threaten that Iran will be blown off the face of the earth if they continue attacking ships. At the same time, he claims that great progress is being made toward a final agreement. These contradictions make it impossible for businesses to plan for the future. As we move forward, the cost of living will be the ultimate metric for whether these policies are working. If the ceasefire holds and the strait truly reopens without tolls, we might see relief at the pump. But if this pause is just a tactical move before a larger fight, then the national average for gas will continue to climb. The job market in places like Britain is already at risk because of the economic shock from the closure. The longer the deadlock lasts, the more people will lose their livelihoods. The Strait of Hormuz remains a global choke point that can hold the entire economy hostage. Whether the world believes the latest update from the White House or not, the underlying tension is not going away. The Navy is still on station, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is still issuing warnings, and the civilian sailors are still trapped at sea. Stay alert, because in this chess game, a single social media post can change your financial future in an instant.